Hi, Arlene. I thought I was running late, but we're the only two here.
I'm, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Um, I'm trying to activate my camera.
I'm in a room with virtually no light, so
Is that plugged in?
it's about. I think it's about ready to snow here in July.
Where's that?
I'm in Boston, but
Oh,
it is just so. It is hot. The humidity you can cut with a knife, and it is so dark and gloomy. It's. I think there's planning on thunderstorms. It would be a relief if the storm comes through, drop the temperature a little bit.
well, it's hot here, so
Yeah, well, we're hot in both places. It's just you don't have the humidity where you are.
although we are in monsoon season this year.
Oh well. All right.
Yeah, we like to run our swamp cooler whenever we can, because after all, this is a desert. But um, for some reason, this year we haven't been able to because the humidity is too high and it doesn't run well.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. We have a whole home humidifier hooked up to our furnace, to our air conditioner, in Las Vegas. And you're right, we haven't had to turn it on in the last month or so. Usually in the winter we end up running it.
Mm. All right, so I'm looking on I'm using Skype, but I think I've, I haven't activated it, so I'll have to settings.
Well, I have a feeling we're going to have a few more people on because Kirk made a big deal about setting up the Zoom link. So unless he's having some technical problem, yeah, I'm interested to hear what Jim Cole has to say.
Yeah, he's a good guy. We used to use Skype for our foreign exchange students, but we kind of abandoned
Huh.
that. We have 4 foreign exchange students.
Staying with you?
No, over the years, we've had them with us, and now they're gone and have kids and all that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, we were living full time here in Boston for a period of 10 years. We had a graduate student who was taking master's MBA courses,
Mm.
who would who we hosted. He didn't live with us, but we take them shopping, take them out to dinner, and they would almost always come over with their wives.
Oh.
Yeah, so because they were basically adults,
Mhm.
but it was really nice because a couple from Hong Kong, a couple from Nigeria, and we maintained correspondence with them through the years.
Yeah.
These are the ones who are coming over here for the MBA courses were usually from very wealthy, politically connected families. So
Mm.
they weren't living austerely in rented housing. They had nice apartments.
Mm.
But is your husband still working in the wine industry?
He left the MGM and he
Uh,
went over to the M Resort.
okay.
Yeah, the MGM started. I mean, they really got corporate, and it kind of ruined a lot of stuff for him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't. The only visibility I have on their greed and stupidity is when they started to charge for parking. That was
Yeah.
that to me was like about as dumb a thing as you can do.
Yes.
The guy that we had speak at one of our wine to water dinners. I don't know if you were there. He was from the Barrymore restaurant. Uh, was their wine sommelier,
Mhm.
um, and they closed the Barrymore during COVID. I didn't know what happened to him, and then I took the Rotary tour over at Virgin, and it turns out he's a sommelier over at Olives now.
Ah,
So, I recognized him, but yeah, he's saying he was unemployed for almost a year. He he started a side business on importing some wine that was not sold locally, and making it available to people. He would resell it.
yeah,
Uh, Yeah, tough times for anybody who is working in hospitality and restaurant.
yes.
Yeah, I don't think we've been to a an MGM branded restaurant in years. We we do go to the steakhouse at Circus Circus, which used to be.
Oh,
It
I
was kind.
love that place.
Yeah, it's really old. It
Yeah.
used to be an MGM property, but they were embarrassed by it, and they didn't have it on they on their M Life frequent what do you call it, frequent guest program.
Mhm. Right.
They had their own kind of program, but I was trying to plan an event there for a meeting where we were going to use the amusement park. And I was talking to the guy at the time. It was still an MGM property, and he was saying it's their most profitable per square foot property on the strip, because even though it's unlike the steakhouse, which is kind of really nice, fine dining, the rest of the place is a bit run down.
Hmm.
And he says, but it attracts families, and they end up spending quite a bit of money, you know, in proportion to the number of square feet of the fairly small casino. So it was a very profitable jewel MGM had, and they weren't positioning it as a high end haughty-taughty thing that like the Bellagio.
All right, maybe you can help me since I'm unable to. I just went and did my Skype reinstall, but the PC must have a camera internally. So would that be under devices, or would that be under system, or would that be elsewhere?
Well, depending on the PC you have, if you go to the box in the lower left hand corner and you type in device manager,
Mhm.
you should see something that says imaging devices, and that's where it should be. If you have a camera hooked up to it, so it would have scanners and would have cameras,
And
and you
what's it called again? Imaging devices?
imaging and devices usually. I mean, it depends on what version of the operating system you have, but did you open up device manager?
Yes, and
Yep.
I see imaging devices, but
Yeah.
it only shows brother scanner.
Yeah. So you don't have it. If it doesn't show a camera there, you don't have a camera hooked
Okay,
up to it.
so what I'll do is I'll just get out of this and get on my phone.
Yeah. Or you could just leave your name up there.
Yeah, I'd rather see people and have them see me.
Yeah. I think that's probably a good idea.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
I'm gonna see you in a bit then.
Okay. Hello, Russ Wayne. Are you live?
I am.
Are you sitting in your car by the lake somewhere with a boat in the water?
No, I'm actually, I've got a webinar educational update today and they just broke for lunch. So I'm going to jump on for a while. I've got to try and eat while I'm doing this, but I'm here.
Oh, all right.
I'm live. Hi.
Yeah,
I don't know how much
I'm
I'll be
always
able to participate.
I'm always envious when you say you're calling in from your car and you pan
Or
the
ski
camera,
slope. Yeah.
right? Ski stuff. Yeah, so,
Yeah. If I was skiing right now, I'd be down in South America somewhere, right?
okay. Yeah, you're right. Or I don't know. I guess Lee Canyon is still not high enough, is it?
No.
No. Yeah, I'm in our home in Boston, and
Oh, good.
we're about 2 miles from the city of Waltham. I don't know if you know it, but it's just another one of the western suburbs that touches Boston. But they have a tall hill there called Prospect Hill, and it's kind of amazing. It's like 2 miles from here, and yet they do skiing.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's neat.
they
Hey,
have
Jim
a
Hunt was just back there. He was back there for the New Hampshire race, and he was back for, I don't know, 4 days or something. And now I believe he's going to Sedona, or not Sedona, Sonora. So
right.
Northern California. So he's got like back-to-back weekends that he had to work. But
Yeah,
you're doing good then,
I
Stu?
I talked to him, and yeah, I talked to him right after he had left Boston. We've been here for about 2 weeks. It's a pity I didn't know he was here because we probably could have
Yeah, you
got
guys
together
could
for
have.
dinner.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Hi, Arlene.
Hello.
Yeah, see you now.
Yep. Hot pink.
If you use an app called Snapchat, you can change all your clothing. It still puts your face onto whatever it is that you want to be wearing. So
Can I change my face?
you can't change your face. No, it keeps that.
All right.
We have Lowry's online now. Okay. Yeah, I was wondering what it's what is it, about 8 minutes after. I was afraid they were having some technical problem. It looks like Maria's online too.
Yeah, she broke her tooth.
Oh
She had to
no.
go to the dentist. Have her smile widely. How's Harriet doing?
Oh, she's doing well. We've been here about a week, and my son was in town for he's based in Nashville now, but he was in town for a local meeting, and so he stayed an extra week with us. So she was kind of in heaven doing his laundry. The best thing a loving mother could do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we've been cleaning out all the old and oversized winter jackets, and we have beautiful Oriental rugs, throw rugs throughout the house. We came back; they were all infested with moss, so
Mm.
they didn't do any damage, but they took them away to have them cleaned and de-infested. So
Yeah.
you know,
That's a chore. That's a project.
yeah, well, that's what happens when you're not somewhere for a couple of years. The critters take over.
Yeah. You don't have anybody who manages it for you?
We have a housekeeper who comes by once a month and moves the dust around, and make sure that there's not a broken water pipe.
Or
But
squatters?
yeah, but we've been holding on to the house because our son was in Singapore for like 7 years, and we knew he was temporary. He was eventually going to come back to the U.S., but didn't know where he was going to be. He grew up here in Boston. We thought maybe he would get a job here and settle in, and we wanted to keep the house. Now we find out that he's in Nashville. So I don't know what we're going to do. We haven't really been here for any significant period of time in the last couple of years, and there's no particular reason to have somewhere where it's hot in the summer and snowy in the winter. So
Mhm.
we've owned this here for 45 years, so it's just a lot of stuff to accumulate. I did a run the Goodwill today. I took 2 trunkloads of stuff over to them,
Wow. Wow.
but it doesn't look like we've even made a dent on the clutter. So,
It feels good to get some of that stuff out, though.
yeah, well, I feel like it's this was good stuff. It's just it's some bedding and some clothing that no longer fits.
Yeah.
So feel like I'm not a cash donation, but it's at least it's going to some good.
Yeah. There's a book called The Happiness Project, and in it, it talks about how when you clear out, stuff like that, even though it's not junk, it makes you feel good, makes you feel happy, because then you've cleared out that stuff.
Well, I mean, I'd like to get rid of a lot more of the clutter. I've got I got tax returns going back 40 years, and I read somewhere that you really only need to keep them for 3. So
Oh,
that's
I thought it was 7.
whatever it is, it's not
Yeah.
40, So
Yeah.
yeah,
I used to work for the IRS, so it's 7.
7, all right, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it probably amounts to 200 pounds worth of paper, with all the associated backup and receipts and stuff.
Yeah, recycle that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, why? Then I had to patch a hole in the plaster in the basement, and I've got a lot of tools here, and I know I have a bunch of putty knives. I couldn't find them. I went through everything, so I just came back from the hardware store and I bought a $5 worth of putty knives.
What are you doing with the putty knives? Painting?
Well, no, we were I installed some wiring for an alarm, and it left some holes in the plaster in the basement, so I need to cover it up. Just another project, and then we're coming back next Tuesday. So I
When I
have
used when I was young and renting, I would use toothpaste to putty up the holes in the wall.
that's, I'm sure the landlord wasn't pleased about that when he figured it out.
The holes were plugged up and it was white, so there you go.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, these days 3M invented that on command stuff. So, well,
Mhm.
I find I can't use it in Las Vegas. It's so dry. The
Mhm.
stuff will stay up there for a week or two, and then it'll fall down.
Should try toothpaste.
Yeah, there you go. Now I got something to add to my bucket list here. So where is Katie? It's 1:15 already.
Mm. She has a tendency to do what Mike does, and that is start a little bit late, but that's okay.
All right. Yeah, well, I feel somewhat comforted because I can see I can see the Lowrys there. Uh, they did manage to get hooked up.
Mm.
I had a Zoom call yesterday at 6 o'clock Eastern, and about quarter of the power went off on the street, 25 homes. I'm on a battery powered laptop, but
Mm.
the internet connection was gone too. So I managed to get on with my cell phone. But the air conditioning, of course, went off. And by the end of the phone call, it was only an hour, but by the end of the phone call, the temperature in the house had gone from a cool 70 to around 85 and was climbing. And the electric company got the air conditioning back on. Oh, you're standing on your head now, Arlene. Now you must be, yeah, reclining. There you go. Actually, if you don't have a camera on your PC, there is an app you can put on your cell phone that turns it into a camera for the PC. Um, you hook you start the app and you hook the phone to Wi-Fi, and your PC will pick up the image from the camera and put it on Zoom. Oh, I see Katie there now. Russell, I guess with the height of the water and the various lakes, you're going to have to convert to windsurfing instead of marine boating. Uh,
Good afternoon and welcome. Our invocation today is by past President Steve Linder. He's going first.
Thank you, President Katie. Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this gathering of Rotarians and for the food we are about to partake. Please bless all Rotarians around the world as we serve our communities and follow the Rotary motto of service above self. We invoke your blessing on this meeting and upon our being together. May we enjoy the fellowship we find here. Help us to continue doing good, supporting and encouraging one another. May blessings rest upon our being together and upon all our efforts as we seek to serve. Broaden our shoulders and support our backs for carrying our responsibilities. Help us to do them nobly, with dignity, and with integrity. Be with us during this centennial year as we seek to make our community better. Watch over President Katie and the board of directors as they move our club into a new century. In your name we pray. Amen.
Our song leader today is Scissor Kane. We're going to do a number that is, if we were in England, would be God Save the Queen. But here it's My Country 'Tis of Thee. My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. Great job. Thank you, Sidra. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag Thanks, and be seated. If you signed up to do something today, I apologize. I took a few duties out of the Green Book, and someone took it upon themselves to write them in. So there was a little confusion today, and I apologize for that. Sidra is going to organize the singers every week for me. And Russ Swain is organizing the Sergeant at Arms, and I am going to have somebody do the invocation for me as well. So thank you for that. Our Sergeant at Arms today is John Pally.
All right.
Hello.
I'm ready. You ready?
We're
We
ready.
have something to do?
Yeah, I hope you're
Okay.
not eating.
Okay, no. But
Okay.
first we have to clarify real quick.
All right.
So, everybody, I get the agenda for the day and it says Sergeant at Arms Steve Pally. So to be clear, John Pally and my friend of 35 years is Steve Latta. Totally unrelated, okay? Live in different places and all that. So I do have a cousin named Steve Pally who's super smart guy. He has a PhD from UCLA. I wish I was him. Anyway.
That's the one we were looking for.
That's the guy. Shoot. He would probably be really funny too. So
I am not at my best at midnight putting this thing together.
that's okay. We'll let it slide this time. But also we just because of the nature, I don't know if people know this, the Sergeant at Arms, can kick people out. And since I do work as an usher, can do that, right? I'm experienced. And so we need to pick up the energy here so that we all stay awake during our guest speaker later on, okay? All right. So you tell me who you want me to go to.
Do
I'm
we
ready.
have any visiting Rotarians? Do we have any international Rotarians? Not that I'm aware of. Do we have any visiting Rotarians?
Okay.
Nobody in their right mind wants to come to Las Vegas in July. Do we have any guests of Rotarians today? Yay.
Thank you. Hi, this is my friend Lynn Collier, and she is the editor of the Las Vegas Review-Journal real estate sections and also the editor of the Las Vegas Business Press. And she came here to see our speaker today. We've been anxiously waiting for this topic, so we're really excited.
Yay, thank you. Welcome. Do we have any guests of the club today? Seeing.
We got a couple here at our table.
Okay, good.
Waited till my mouth was full, of course. Thank you very much. Ricky and Sonny, who you may remember. Stand up, say hello.
Hello. Hi, thanks for having me back again. Appreciate it.
And we're going to introduce them a little bit later because we have a presentation to make. Is Jim Hunt here today? No. Karen, would you make an announcement about the cigar social then?
The Cigar Social and Going Away Party for Michael and Amanda is Friday, August 5th at Randy and Sally Donald's place. It's open for Rotarians and our friends and family and guests, so please feel free to bring extra people to it. The Cigar Fellowship, you do not have to be a cigar smoker to come. In fact, most of the time we have very few cigar smokers and lots of guests that are non-smokers. So it's $10 per person, potluck. Cigar smokers bring 3 cigars, 1 for yourself, 1 to trade, and 1 for the troops. And please sign up in the Green Book. Thank you.
That date was August 5th?
This Friday, August 5th.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Karen, while you have the mic, or Steve can take it back to you.
Thanks, Steve.
Will you talk about the putting contest?
Okay. The putting tournament, more details to follow, but it's supports the youth exchange program. The date, just save the date at this point, is October 6th It's a Thursday night and it's at Angel Park. The price is $40 for adults and $20 for children. That includes your barbecue and the putting tournament itself. And there'll be a sign-up sheet in the Green Book next week.
Great. I promise not to take it out. David Jones is going to make an announcement for the 25 Club.
Is not feeling well today, so she asked me to fill in that we had a social 2 weeks ago at Jamie Goldsmith's house, and it was absolutely fantastic. We actually raised $320 for the canned food drive that's coming up. Wait, applause. Yay, that's good. And mostly it was because of several donations that lots of people brought, including Dr. Kathy, that I won the best prize as far as I'm concerned. Also, we have the Alpine picnic that's coming up at Tom's Cabin on August 13th. That's on a Saturday, and apparently we start early at 9 o'clock. So there's a hike prior to the picnic, and then we'll end at 3 o'clock. So put that on your calendar for Saturday, August 13th, and that should be in the Green Book going around to sign up for the potluck.
Okay, we don't have to hike.
Oh, we're not doing the hike.
No, you can do the hike if you want to.
You don't have to do the hike. You can come and watch people go up the hill and come down again.
Great, thank you. Just want to make sure that was clear. Carrie Groves, where are you?
The Centennial Committee is going full force, and this is just a reminder that if you are on the committee, I sent an email out for our next meeting, which will be the 4th, right after the meeting. So if you were missed on my email, I do apologize, and let me know, and I will get that forwarded to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Sean, can you talk about the Lowry's Blood Drive? Do you want to announce that?
Sure. I sent out an email. Lowry's is hosting a blood drive here. And it all started with us introducing Lowry's, asking if we could use their facility to do a blood drive. And they loved it so much, they have continued it every year. There's a sign up in the email that went out. Sign up for the time that you want to come, and they serve you good food when you come. So, thanks.
Thank you, Sean. Tina Bishop, talk about social media.
Just a note about Steve and John. There is benefit. So Steve Pally, just kind of works.
Really?
Yeah, just saying. Just saying. Okay, on your tables, there's a flyer, and it's about social media. Just a quick note, we're actually sticking our big toe into social media. Jared Kavanaugh's group, Affinity, and his group, Affinity, are helping us develop a social media strategy. So on here, what's important for you to note is that we're looking for pictures and information about events and things we do before, during, and after. There is a website on here, Las Vegas Rotary Social @gmail.com, that you can send your pictures and notes, and they have someone identified internally that will figure out the best place for it to go. We'll analyze in about 3 months after we've been out there a while, decide which sites are best for us, work best for us, because, there's different age and psychographics for each of them. So we're working on it.
I am so grateful to Tony and to Kirk Holmes and to Jared for getting this organized, because I know nothing about it, and they've got it where I think it will actually work for a change. So,
President Katie, let me just
Hello.
say one thing. Tina didn't mention it, but the goal here would be everyone in the room, everyone in the club is liking or following on Instagram and Facebook And since 75% of you have your phone in your hand right now, why don't you go to either Facebook or Instagram, look up Las Vegas Rotary Club and hit follow or like? Just a
Right.
thought.
Thank you. I like it. We have a couple of presentations today. We have a Paul Harris Award to give. Mike, will you come up? And Gwen Hall?
What a way to start our centennial year. We're awarding Gwen Hall, Paul Harris Fellow +4.
There we go. Thank you. And we have a check to present to SUNY Chabro for the Douglas J. Green Memorial Foundation. If you'd like to come up, and Greg isn't here, is he? Okay. SUNY was our speaker a few weeks ago. Sunny, I'm sorry. Just, everybody else is correcting me today, so please, somebody needs to keep me straight. But we're happy to give you this check for your foundation, and this sends boxes of supplies to troops that are deployed overseas, correct?
Thank you so much for this check. I can't tell you how much this means to our foundation, and this check directly helps the men and women right now that are deployed overseas. We still have about 400 boxes in our storage that need to go out. So thank you so much for this check. It really helps these men and women that are deployed over there right now. Thank you.
Thank you. David Jones has a little history update for us. We were really excited to hear about.
Thanks, Kate. So I, like the AV stuff, I unwittingly volunteered to be the research assistant for our group. And so I went, Tina had asked last week, we know this story about our Rotary Club. The very first service project that we know of happened in a few years, as the story goes, a few years after the club was organized. So that puts it about 1926, 27, 28. And it's a story about a young boy in Overton who was in a mowing accident and who lost both feet, came to Las Vegas, had surgery on his feet, and then because he was only 4, he needed new prosthetic feet every year. And so our Rotary Club actually, I think, raised funds year after year after year to help this boy be able to have some feet. And so Tina said, wouldn't it be great to know the name of that boy? And so we now know who it is. I found the boy. I went through a bunch of newspapers, found the boy, and actually I spoke to his son and his cousin, and they have such great stories. So I'll just tell one quick story. When the boy, his name is Martin Eaton, when Martin was older and a father, he took his family, he loved to ride horses. And so he was down at Cashman Field doing in the rodeo and the bronco bucking contest. Anyway, he was riding a horse. He had 2 wooden legs. And the announcer didn't say that he had wooden legs because he was very competitive and he did a good job. Well, the horse threw him, his foot caught in the stirrup, and as his son tells the story, the whole audience just went aghast because this guy lost his leg riding the horse. And he very casually just hopped over on one foot, pulled it out of the stirrup, and off he goes. And he said the family was just laughing and laughing, and they thought it was the greatest thing ever that the audience didn't know. So that's one of, we got so many stories to go. But we're working with him and with his family to sort of collect more information about the long-term effect that Rotary has had for this family. He's now passed away, but we're still working on additional stuff, but we thought he'd share that. Good job.
Thanks for digging that up, David. That's great. I want to thank everybody who helped put this meeting together today. Kathy Mann and not Barbara Castro for the setup. The greeters, Nancy Anderson and Antoinette Monroe. Tear down John Pally and Steve Latta. Our scribe today is Susan Ziobro. And our AV team is David Jones and Andrew Thurlow. So thank you all. Enjoy a few minutes of fellowship, and we'll be back with the speaker. Before I ask Jackie Thornhill to come up and introduce our speaker today, we're going to do the drawing. The number for the drawing today is 8455446. Not Jim Tucker. You got the ticket? How? There were, the pot today was $54.93 plus whatever we took in today. And the deck is getting smaller, so. And the number for the Lowry bucks today is 8455672. Oh. Sonny got it. $50 in Lowry bucks.
There you go. You're welcome. Here. Go.
Jackie? Now, some of you can see all of the accomplishments that Jim has had by reading his bio, but I'm still going to pick out a few things and some personal things. For over 25 years, Jim has represented business owners in litigation and transactional matters. He also serves as a neutral arbitrator and mediator to aid in business dispute resolution. And as a litigator, Jim has represented numerous clients, and his experience spans a wide variety, some of which are attorney malpractice, aviation, banking, breach of contract, collections, class actions, and many, many, many more. And Jim's firm, Howard & Howard, has awarded several grants to local Las Vegas nonprofits in conjunction with our own Las Vegas Rotary Foundation. Jim is a past president of the Las Vegas Rotary Club, and I was honored to serve as his president-elect. Jim was always a source of ready legal advice whenever I needed it during my president year. Jim is speaking on a very timely topic today. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome past President Jim Cole.
Thank you. Well, I'm very happy to come and talk to you all today. I want to give you a 20,000-foot view of the blockchain, Bitcoin, and NFT. So I'm going to kind of discuss why they were invented, who invented them, a general overview of how they work, and then some exciting new products that are coming down the line. So with that, first question is, what is blockchain and why was it invented? Well, let's find out. So blockchain is an intranet protocol. You're probably familiar with several in the Transmission Control Protocol, or TCP/IP. That enabled bilateral messaging, which we know as email, and it also laid the groundwork for the internet, HTTP, is a set of rules for transferring files such as text, images, sound, and other multimedia files. And HTTP is the protocol that defines how websites work, and the structures and ordering of packets on the network is defined by that protocol. So it doesn't matter what server you use or what browser you use, like Chrome or Firefox or Safari, because they all follow the same set of rules, and that's why the World Wide Web works so seamlessly. So blockchains are protocols as well. They manage typically digital ledgers and transactions, and they're shared on a distributed network and secured by advanced cryptography. Blockchain protocols operate on top of the internet on a peer-to-peer network of computers, and they all run the same blockchain protocol. Depending on which blockchain you're on, you will follow that protocol. The individual computers on any given network hold an identical copy of the ledger of transactions that enables the peer-to-peer value transactions without a middleman. So unlike a client-server architecture, there is no central server for processing in a peer-to-peer architecture. The peers directly interact with one another, and all of the nodes on the network without a central server. So blockchains are specific types of databases. Those are probably some of the ones you're most familiar with, and they differ from a typical database in the way that they store information. The blockchains are, each individual block contains information and it is chained together, and that's how they store it. So as new data comes in and is entered into a fresh block, one block is fed with data and chained to the previous block, which makes the data chain together in chronological order. You put different types of information can be stored in a blockchain, but the most common use so far has been ledger for transactions, which is how Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the other digital cryptocurrencies operate. So Bitcoin was introduced in October of 2008, and it was a proposal for a virtual currency system that eliminated the need for the central authority to issue currency, to transfer the currency, or to confirm the transactions. Bitcoin is the first application of blockchain technology. It's very interesting, the parallels between blockchain and TCP/IP. Just as email enabled bilateral communications, Bitcoin enables bilateral financial transactions. The development and maintenance is open, distributed and shared amongst a group of volunteers who maintain it. And just like email, Bitcoin was first adopted by a small but very enthusiastic group of proponents. On August 18th, 2008, fantastic day, happens to be my birthday, the domain name of bitcoin.org was registered. Later that year, on October 31st, the link to the paper authored by Satoshi Nakamoto titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, was posted to a cryptography mailing list. This paper detailed the method for using a peer-to-peer network to generate what was described as a system for electronic transactions without relying on trust. On January 3rd, the Bitcoin network came into existence, and Satoshi Nakamoto mined the first Genesis block, which is block 0, and he was rewarded with 50 Bitcoin, which I think all of us would like to have right now. And it was embedded in the Coinbase was text from the London Times from January 3rd, 2009, which was a headline stating that the chancellor was on the brink of a second bailout for banks. And people have speculated for quite some time that Nakamoto feared that the banks were going to collapse and was trying to make a system where we wouldn't have to use banks anymore. And that's generally what Bitcoin does. And he does this by a process that's known as disintermediation, which is the removal of intermediaries in economic or supply chains, or basically cutting out the middleman in connection with the transactions. So Satoshi Nakamoto is the name used by the presumed pseudo-anonymous person or persons who developed Bitcoin, authored the Bitcoin white paper, and created and deployed Bitcoin's original reference implements. As part of the implements, Nakamoto also devised the first blockchain database. Nakamoto was active in the development of Bitcoin up until about December of 2010. Many people have claimed, and many people have been accused of being Nakamoto, but he's never been positively identified. And so he's kind of like the Kaiser Sose of the internet. So what does your government have to say about Bitcoin? According to the SEC, Bitcoin is a virtual currency. It's not a security. However, exchanges that allow trading of Bitcoin are subject to securities regulation. The CFTC says it's a virtual currency and a commodity subject to CFTC oversight. The IRS says it's a virtual currency. It's taxed as property, and the latest financial packages in Congress are going to ensure that it gets taxed. FinCEN says it's a convertible virtual currency that requires anyone that transfers these currency as a business has to be registered as a money services businesses and subject to know your user and anti-money laundering protocols. And the OCC says cryptocurrency may be, as of July 2020, custodied by federal banks and savings associations. And finally, the U.S. Marshal Service says it's legal property. And if you are a criminal and they get it from you, they're going to auction it just like a boat or a car. So what is a blockchain? They have 5 characteristics: distributed database, peer-to-peer transmission, transparency with pseudo-anonymity, irrevocable records, and computational logic. So this is a representation of a traditional computer network. This is exactly like what we have set up at my office. All of our attorneys have individual laptops. So if I want to communicate or send some information to one of my partners, I type it in my computer, it goes into the central server, who decides that it needs to go to John Smith, and then sends that information on to John Smith. And when I save documents, they're saved on the central server, and others can gather it. Central nodes require the trusted intermediary, and this is what Nakamoto is trying to get rid of, is that central computer. So one of the key differences between a typical database and a blockchain is the way the data is structured. Blockchains collect information together in groups known as blocks, and they hold sets of information, and the blocks then have certain storage capacities, and when they are filled, they are chained to the previously filled block, and that's how they are stored on a blockchain. So a database, such as the previous one, stores it in tables. And so all blockchains are databases, but not all databases are blockchains, if that makes sense. So the blockchain system makes an irreversible timeline of data when implemented in a decentralized nature. And the block set is filled, it's set in stone, becomes part of this timeline. And then each block is given an exact timestamp when it's added to the blockchain. Each node that elects to be a full node by maintaining a full copy of the blockchain has access to the blockchain's entire database and complete history. So there's no single party. So you can see all those nodes out there, they all have a copy of the blockchain. And so that's why it's called a distributed ledger, because everybody can see it at the same time. So go through the characteristics. First, the distributed database. This is a very simple company, but each one of these headquarters, finances, and sales has their own copy of the blockchain that they're using. So each part of the blockchain needs to have access to the entire database and its complete history, and no single party, none of those 3 control the data. They just share it and verify it without an intermediary. So peer-to-peer transmission, this is a very simple diagram. You can see that every one of the nodes can talk to every one of the other nodes. That's what it means to have a peer-to-peer transmission. So each node, as it obtains information, will forward it to the other nodes, and then they have an agreement, and then it becomes part of the chain. So transparency with pseudo-anonymity. So every transaction is associated and value and visible, to everyone who has access to the system. So each node or user of a blockchain has a unique 30+ character alphanumeric address that identifies it. So users are allowed to remain anonymous, or they can provide proof of their identity to others. And transaction occurs between Those are the 30 digit addresses. Excuse me. So blockchain currencies like Bitcoin are built on public key cryptography. And it uses a pair of keys. You have a public key, which is publicly known. That's your 30-digit alphanumeric code. And then you have your private key, which is your authenticator, so that the blockchain can say, yes, I am actually Jim Cole. Yes, I'm actually approving this particular transaction. So blockchains have irrevocable records. And once a transaction is entered in the database and the accounts are updated, they can't be altered because it's linked to every other transaction that went before it. Various computer algorithms and approaches are deployed to ensure that the recording in the database is permanent, chronologically ordered, and available to all others on the network. So blockchains run on computational logic. There's a little logic tree there for you. And the digital nature of the ledger means that blockchains can be tied and in essence programmed. You can have automatic triggers set within your thing, and users are beginning now to set up algorithms and rules that automatically trigger transactions between parties. So for a basic Bitcoin transaction, the first step would be I initiate the transaction. 2, the person who I want to send it to is identified by their number. 3, the algorithm checks and confirms my private key is authentic, and then the transaction is authenticated by the whole group of servers, and my Bitcoin is transferred, and then the ledger is updated automatically throughout the entire system. So to summarize, like many other internet applications, blockchain is a protocol rather than a specific piece of hardware. And instead of mandating that everyone run the same executable, so for example, like a Zoom or a Team, all it requires is that you agree on how you're going to communicate with each other for the rules of service. So the network establishes the rules, dictates how to format, transmit, receive data, so that the computer devices and other servers know what's going on. So blockchain networks are composed of nodes, miners, and users. And as you recall from the prior slides, the nodes are the individual computers that run the blockchains. The miners are the people who are checking the transaction and confirming them. And the users are the people that initiate and or benefit from the transaction. So nodes participate in consensus. They share information about the transaction and the number of funds. They confirm transactions and stored copies of confirmations. They participate in the building of new blocks and blocks in the blockchain for which they receive a reward. Nodes can see ledgers on all the other nodes. Peer-to-peer protocol allows them to communicate with each other and within the network, and they transmit information about the new blocks amongst themselves. Among all of the full nodes in a blockchain network, some are known as miners, and miners are the people that add blocks to the blockchain. Miners validate transactions using high-powered computers to solve complex equations. Miners compete with each other to add records to the chain. So in order to mine a blockchain, the miner needs to do the following. It needs to take the transaction in the current block and combine it with the hash of the previous block to derive the hash of the current block, and then store the derived hash into the current block and share it with the network. So on Bitcoin, they insert a network difficulty target into every block. So in order to mine the block, the result of the hash must meet certain criteria that are set by Bitcoin. So for example, a difficulty criteria could require that the hash begin with 8 number 3s and then fill in the rest of the hash. So in order to meet the difficulty target, miners need to inject a number, it's called a nonce, into the block. And so they derive the hash from the transaction, the hash from the previous block, and the nonce. Miners compete with each other to guess the value of the nonce and the results in the hash that matches the difficulty targets. So the winning miner gets paid typically in Bitcoin. The mathematical problem can only be solved by trial and error, and the odds of solving any one hash are about 1 in 5.9 trillion. And so that's why when you hear about people that mine Bitcoin and they have these banks of high-powered computer processors and are burning up the power grid, it's because they're really trying to figure out something that's 1 in 5.9 trillion. So the process of getting or finding the nonce is called the proof of work. And once the nonce is found, the entire block and the nonce is broadcast to the other nodes, informing them that the block has been mined and ready to be added to the blockchain. The other nodes will check to make sure that the nonce actually does solve the particular equation. And then if it satisfies a difficulty target, they will stop that mining process and then begin mining the next block. So the key concept behind the proof of work is that it's difficult to find a nonce, but once you find it, it's very easy to verify the nonce. So it's like a combination lock. If you're trying to pick the lock, it's going to be very difficult until you get the combination. And once you get the combination, it's very easy to open the lock. And that's generally how it works. So the first block in a blockchain is known as a genesis block, and each blockchain has its own genesis block and algorithm that's used to create the blockchain's hash. Transactions are grouped into blocks, and they can be effectively verified and synchronized with other computers on the network. Once a block is verified, they are added to the last block of the blockchain, and that's where it gets its name from. So security relies on the concept. There's a representation of how you go hash to hash to hash, and so you fill up one block, and there's a bunch of transactions that are underneath it. Then once you get the next block, you take the old hash, get the new hash, and then do all the transactions and so on and so forth. And so that's how you fill those up. Security on a blockchain relies on the concepts of immutability and consensus. A consensus refers to the ability of all the nodes within a distributed network to agree on the true state of the network and the validity of the transactions that are represented on the network. So typically, the process of achieving a consensus is dependent upon the consensus algorithm for that particular blockchain, and the consensus algorithms vary from blockchain to blockchain. Immutability refers to the ability of blockchains to prevent alterations and transactions that have been confirmed. So when combined, consensus and immutability provide this framework for data security on the blockchain networks. And while consensus algorithms ensure that the rules of the system are being followed and all of the parties involved agree on the current state of the network, immutability guarantees the integrity of the data and the transactions as each new block is confirmed to be valid. So hashing a blockchain refers to the process of having input. When you put an item into the hash program, whatever comes in comes out at the same length. So we take looking at cryptocurrencies, they have various transactions of different lengths and different amounts. And when you run them through their hashing algorithms, they set out hashes that are of specified lengths, and it's regardless of the input of the transaction. That's what's called a hash. So Bitcoin uses what's known as the secure hashing algorithm 256 or SHA 256. So when you hash with SHA 256, it always spits out a 256-bit answer. So for example, if you take a YouTube video of say 50 megabytes and hash it using SHA 256, the output is 256. And similarly, if you took a text message of 5 kilobytes and hashed it using SHA 256, it will still come out as a 256-bit hash. And the only difference between the two will be the hash pattern itself. So hashing is the umbrella for the cryptographic function of blockchains. So hash functions produce very different outputs for inputs, even if they're similar. So if you had alpha and alpha 1, they would look completely different. And the reason for that is that the pattern were similar and differed by only one digit or a few digits at the end, then the code would be deciphered very quickly. So a hash of a transaction also is helpful, and it makes it very easy for you to be able to find a transaction. So instead of looking for transaction number 1,322 in the 14,573rd block of the chain, you put the hash in the Explorer and you can find it. So this is just a basic summary of how a Bitcoin transaction works. You see it's created. There's the block representing the transaction, the block sent to the other nodes, the nodes validated, the winning node is paid in some Bitcoin, the block's added to the chain, and the network then is distributed and validated, and the next transaction goes on. So that was mostly focused on Bitcoins and distributed ledgers, but what's coming now are smart contracts, and these are really interesting and kind of neat. So a smart contract is a software application that is designed to execute an arrangement that is agreed upon by the parties at a pre-programmed triggering event. So smart contracts can be run on blockchain platforms, and they're programmed to support them, and they automatically execute and verify and enforce without human intervention. So you don't have. We have a saying in my office, like you can tell how big the loan is by how high the documents come off the table. And it doesn't matter how tall the documents are. If the person on their side doesn't want to do what they're required to do, it's not going to happen until you sue them and or reach some sort of resolution. But if you set it up in a smart contract on a blockchain, it's going to happen. There's no stopping it. So it's a nice benefit to business owners. So in the supply chain controls, it's a great idea. You can use it to have a paperless transaction across borders with strangers in a relatively secure manner. Smart contracts can use oracles, which are such things as web services or external sources of information, such as GPS trackers or other items from the Internet of Things to trigger contract execution, meaning money transfers, customs get filed, releasing funds, releasing goods. It makes them really, really useful in many contexts. Escrow is obviously a very fruitful place for blockchain. You simply put everything in it. Anyone who's done anything with real estate in the last 5 years has gotten DocuSign documents. We have a program that we use where when we do closings, it sources through all the documents, searches all the documents, figures out what the signature pages are, pulls those out, figures out who needs to sign them, sends the signature page to the person who is to sign it, and when everybody has returned the signed documents, it then produces a conformed copy and the transaction closes. So that's a similar type of thing that the blockchain smart check things will do. So what are some of the risks? Well, this is something called a 51% attack, and that is fraudsters that have enough computing power can build an alternate chain, which ends up being longer than the true chain, and then therefore part of the Nakamoto Bitcoin protocol is that the longest chains win. So once they inject this chain into the blockchain, all the other nodes have to agree with it, and they then will run fraudulent transactions within the chain and steal your Bitcoin. So it's probably not possible anymore to do it on Bitcoin itself, but it has been done on smaller chains like Bitcoin Gold and Ethereum Classic. And in this first quarter of 2022, people stole approximately $1.3 billion in cryptocurrency. So Bitcoin also has pseudo-anonymity because everyone knows that user A sent user B 1 Bitcoin, but nobody knows who A and B are. And so this gives people money laundering and know your customer concerns. And this has given growth to chain analysis, which is an industry to help you with your know your customer anti-money laundering requirements. So chain analysis is the process of inspecting, identifying, modeling, and visually representing blockchain data with the goal of discovering who's behind this 30-digit alphanumeric code. Governments are not happy with it. It messes with their monetary policies. Governments are very attached to fiat currency, which means a dollar or a pound or a euro, and they don't want competing currencies that they don't have any control over. There's also obviously lots and lots of stories that we've all heard about criminals using the dark web and paying each other in cryptocurrency because it's anonymous. So that has a problem with it. And then, of course, the governments don't like it because so far they haven't been really successful in taxing it. So here's what I think is a real problem with it is the amount of power these things use, because you have just thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of computer banks that are running it all the time. Bitcoin uses as much energy as the state of Washington. Bitcoin uses 7 times as much electricity as all of Google's platforms put together. And a single Bitcoin transaction could power a US house for 65.5 days. I mean, that's a lot of power. And a single Bitcoin transaction is estimated to emit 300 kilograms of carbon dioxide. So blockchain is a foundational technology. It has the potential to create a whole lot of host of new things in the business world, but foundational technology needs inventors to make disruptive technology. So disruptive technology, we talked about at the beginning, was like TCP/IP. That was foundational technology, and it was around in the 90s, and it had been there for at least a decade, and it hadn't really done anything for anybody business-wise. And it started with emails, and then allowed people to use email because it broke up the emails into different pieces and then sent it back into the person's mailbox where it was then reassembled. In the mid-90s, the HTTP protocol came along, and that led to the World Wide Web, where web browsers were able to take you to places like Yahoo and Amazon and the Wall Street Journal, and users quickly adopted it. And the rapid adoption of the World Wide Web left a lot of brick and mortar companies panicking to catch up and form their own websites. And there's quite a few that went out of business because they didn't keep up with the times. So the internet wasn't anything until disruptive technology came along to make it something. And it took almost 30 years for TCP/IP to move from single-use technology to World Wide Web of internet. So the most common use for blockchain right now is cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin. And right now we're on the cusp of getting smart contracts and other things, and we'll see what kind of disruptive technology is coming down the line. So switch topics to NFTs really quickly. So NFTs are non-fungible tokens. So fungible means you can replace it. So if I took your $100 bill and gave you 5 20s, you're in the same position as you were. If I take your Van Gogh and give you my kid's finger painting, you're not in the same position as you were. So that's what that means. So non-fungible tokens are non-interchangeable units of data that are stored on blockchains, and they're typically associated with digital files like photos and videos and audio. And because the token is uniquely identifiable, they're different from Bitcoin, which is fungible. So on May 13, 2014, Kevin McCoy, this is the first NFT that was ever made, and it's called Quantum. It's a pixelated octagon with different shapes at pulse. This was sold last year at auction for $1.4 million. But I have a copy of it here in my deck, so I'm trying to see the value of the $1.4 million. But here's a neat thing. Nike's patented this thing is called Crypto Kicks, and so when you buy this shoe, you get an NFT, and so the NFT allows you to create what's called a crypto kick, and the crypto kick can intermediate and breed the digital shoe with another shoe and create shoe offspring. And if you like the shoe offspring, you can then have Nike custom make you your crypto baby shoe. So I think that's kind of a neat idea, but I think the really true value in what you could do with NFTs is in valuable items like watches and jewelry and things. The manufacturer can associate a NFT with it, and so then when you sell it, the buyers are comfortable that they have gotten an actual product instead of a bogus one. I see I'm out of time. Okay, so
Jim, thank you for that. It's really interesting, and you could probably do another program on it. In the spirit of the day, I have a Soul Power Award for you, and it's spelled wrong. So we'll get you another certificate, but the kids will get the shoes anyway in your name. So
Thank you. Thanks.
thank you very much. We have a board meeting immediately following. It's in the Silver State Room right behind the bar. So meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.